Bienvenidos, señoras y señores, to another episode of the Bleed Lows Podcast. This episode of the Bleed Lows Podcast is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. Everything from pro and college basketball to UFC, MMA, and more. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. With live betting options, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or any game imaginable, BetOnline is truly the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite leagues and events. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE, B-L-E-A-V, to receive your rewards. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts. And joining us on the Carne Asada, first timer, you may recognize his work from the Dodgersbeat website, Cody Snavely. Cody, bienvenidos, my friend.
How's it going? It's good to join you guys.
So for those of you who are not familiar, you know, Dodgersbeat is what produces this podcast. So they produce also, they got some great articles on the Dodgers there, and Cody has been contributing to that website. So make sure you go to the website and read Cody's stuff. That being said, Cody, introduce yourself to our people. What do they need to know about you?
Well, I think what's pretty interesting is that Dodger fans travel well across the country, and I'm all the way from Delaware. I've been a fan pretty much since I started watching baseball around middle school, and everybody always asks me, especially more recently, because with the Philadelphia sports being like really good recently, they're like, well, how are you a Dodgers fan? Why aren't you rooting for us over here? And I just tell them, I've been rooting for the Dodgers since I was like 11, 12 years old. And still going to rock it with my boys in blue all the way out.
So how did that happen at 12? Was it you just saw them on TV, or was there a particular player that turned you on to this fandom?
So my stepdad, he was a big Dodgers fan, and at the time I kind of wasn't into like baseball, but he was always watching, especially since on the East Coast their games are at like 10 o'clock here. So we would always kind of just stay up watching them, and then I just started gravitating towards that. I remember the year I really started getting into it, and this is when I was in middle school, so just how long ago it was the 2013 season. And when they went on that really good comeback in the division, especially on their road record at that time, they were like the best road team in the league. And it was something that me and my stepdad would watch routinely. And ever since then, I was pretty much hooked. So,
did you have any favorite players in middle school that were Dodgers?
Definitely. Surprisingly, everyone's going to say Kershaw and stuff like that. I was a really big Hanley Ramirez fan.
All right.
Especially during those 2013 season and the postseason, where he unfortunately had that fractured rib in the NLCS. So if that didn't happen, I'm pretty sure we're talking about another Dodgers Red Sox World Series there. I firmly believe that.
So let me ask you this, Cody. When we had a friend of the Carne Asada, Joe Kelly, on, did you go, screw this guy, man? This is the guy who put Henley down.
I remember when we signed him, and a bunch of my friends and we were talking about it, and I was like, well, it was when he was young. He did have a lot of control issues, and pretty sure he was a rookie that year for the Cardinals. So getting thrown in a spot like that, but bygones be bygones. He helped bring a title to LA eventually anyway. So there you go.
So it's all good. All right. So we haven't talked real Dodgers baseball in a while. So I think there's a perfect time to talk real Dodgers baseball since it's the first week of spring training. The camp has finally opened up. We've been seeing all this stuff here in terms of players reporting to camp. We've been seeing workouts. They're doing scrimmages amongst the team. The first game of spring training will take place this weekend if it doesn't get rained out, because there seems to be weather across everywhere in the country. So this episode is going to be devoted to spring training and finally talking about some real Dodger talk. So what I want to start off with is that video. And for those of you who haven't seen it yet, I'm going to do a little snippet. Dave Roberts addressing the team, and I want to give you my opinion after we see the video. Babyface, can you roll the video, please?
First off, this is a new year. This group, like I said, is a hungry group, a focused group. I love this group. I love this team. And it's going to be fun to watch you guys come together. Let's go out there and be the Dodgers, play together, and get better each day. And each individual, myself included, has got to find a way to channel that focus and be able to sustain it, not only today, when this is the first day of workouts, where everyone's excited to see everybody, it's great, energy's good, but there's going to be a point in spring training where it gets monotonous, it's the same thing, it gets tiresome, it gets to be a grind, but we all have to individually, collectively default to still focusing on getting better that particular day. Find out how to love practice, enjoy it, love the grind, and ask yourselves, are we in or are we out? Every single day.
So I want to start off with that because to me, that seemed like a different Dave Roberts in terms of energy. I don't know if you guys remembered how he addressed the team last spring training. Now, I think there's a reason why it's a different Dave Roberts, so I want to get your guys' opinion on this. First of all, to me, I couldn't help but think when I saw that speech, this whole intensity thing that he was talking about, that he was asked about, that the Dodgers didn't have the same level of intensity as the show pods, seems to have really resonated. And I feel like he's really emphasizing this because to me, he seemed very focused and like I'm not saying that he was super intense and it was like Pacino from Any Given Sunday over here, but it didn't seem laid back to me. Cody, what did you think about that?
I definitely think the way he's going to manage this year and the way that the Dodgers organization is going to go about this year is, no matter how you look at it, last year was a failure. They won 111 games, and then they couldn't really even – they looked lost pretty much the entire postseason. Even the one game they won, they still didn't really hit well with runners in scoring position. They kind of got bailed out by a lot of stuff, and the Padres took advantage of them. And I think a lot of players that are still here or not here, they got called out. Dave Roberts, no matter what's happened in the playoffs in the years past, has always gotten called out and criticized. And maybe last year was a slap in the face to see that maybe something we have to change to, like he said, have that intensity going forward, not just through the regular season, but all the way through October. So I think that's what he's trying to get into the players' heads here, including himself.
Babyface, did you sense something different there? Did you think he was different, or is this much ado about nothing? It's just same old Dave Roberts.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's Dave. In general, he's that motivator, right? He's going to get the team motivated. But I think, hearing, what he's saying, like, okay, yeah, it's spring training, and towards when we get 10, 15 days in, it's going to start getting boring, right? It's just going to be the same thing over and over, and that kind of translates to how their season went, right? Like they just started cruising. By the time they got to September, right, they were just cruising. It's like, oh, another game. We go out there. It's another game, whatever. And I think that translated as they went into October, right? It was kind of like, hey, it's another game. We're just going to go out there and play it and whatever. And we should win it, right? So I think he's trying to get that into the, no matter how it is, even if it seems boring, you got to go out there with the same attitude, same emphasis every single game. And I think he's starting that, like you said, like from day one, from spring training going forward this time.
Well, what I thought also was interesting was he addressed things that everybody's talking about. The fact that this is a different team. The fact that Justin Turner's not there. The fact that Cody Bellinger's not there. So when you hear him say, I love this group and you guys are going to come together, to me, he's acknowledging like the chatter out there that the show pods are the favorites, that people don't look at the Dodgers the same way that they looked at them before, and that these guys have something to prove. So to me, I'm encouraged by that. I mean, Do you think he's aware of that? Do you think these guys, as a matter, how many times they say they don't read the comments, they don't read the quotes? They're aware of this stuff, right, Cody?
I definitely think they can say that they don't read into it or look at what these reporters are saying, but they most definitely do. They all have phones, they all use social media, and they definitely see what people are saying. And like you said, like there's players that aren't here anymore that have been backbones of the organization, and I think that's good in a way because now it's kind of a new chapter. And we'll probably get into it later. There's going to be a lot of competition between guys. Some that we signed are minor leaguers. We're going to get to see what they have and what they can do on the field. And I think that's good.
Babyface, are they aware of the chatter that's out there?
Oh yeah, I mean they're definitely aware, and I mean, but to me it's fine because like, I think I mentioned this at the end of last year, like on paper, right? When you're looking at the teams on paper, Dodgers last year on paper, right? Way and by far the best team, right? Blowing away the Padres in the playoffs, right? On paper, right? So now this year, it kind of has switched. People are saying, no, the Padres look like a better team on paper, right? And Dodgers don't look as strong on paper. On paper, again, right? But we know very well that on paper doesn't win you the game, right? So I think that's fine. Hey, you got to go out there and you got to deliver. You got to play on the field and see what happens, right? So I think it's fine. I mean, I personally don't think the Dodgers have people are saying like, oh, the Dodgers got worse. I mean, I don't really see that they got, what did they beat the Padres by? They were up by 20 games last year, right?
22 games.
Did they get 22 games worse and the Padres improved by 22 games, 23 games to take over first place?
I don't know, man. I mean, we're going to get into it because I do feel that there are a lot of question marks to this, not only for the Dodgers, but I think there's also question marks with the show pods. Because like you said, on paper, the show pods look loaded. They added Bogarts. But I think they also have questions in terms, I mean, Manny Machado just announced he's opting out. Is that going to be a distraction for the show pods? I mean, how are the show pods going to react to you guys are no longer, the up-and-comers? Now you guys have expectations. How are the show pods going to deal with expectations? So I think both teams have questions. And so I want to get into the Dodgers signing David Peralta. And it was a last-minute thing, as you had mentioned, Cody. What are your thoughts on the Dodgers signing David Peralta?
I think all winter they were looking for an outfielder. Obviously, with Cody Bellinger leaving, that's a pretty big hole in center field. And they had a couple options. They signed Hayward to the minor league deal. They have Outman internally. They have Chris Taylor if they want to put him back there. He played a lot there in 2017. But I think they needed a veteran presence. I'm not too sure how they feel on Outman yet. In his brief time, he was really good. But Peralta's had a really good career for the Diamondbacks, and I believe where did he play? He played with the Rays, I think, this season.
He got traded to the Rays last year.
And Dodger fans should know he plays pretty well against the NL West. He has a really good slash line against them, and he still has a lot left in the tank, and he wants to win. That's what he mentioned today, and I believe, or yesterday in an interview, where this is the best place to win. So,
Babyface, do you like that David Peralta signing?
Yeah, I mean he brings that veteran presence, and I think he brings some fire with him, right? I think he's a pretty fiery player, right? So he's gonna bring that intensity, right? That we've been talking about that they need, and there's a guy right there that brings some intensity. He's played in the NL West pretty much his entire career. He knows the other teams in this division, and he knows the Dodgers, right? So I think he's gonna be a good fit for them.
It's interesting that you bring up that intensity thing. I wonder, and Cody, you had said, yes, I think you're right. They were looking for a veteran. So it is interesting that he checks off both boxes. If you look at his numbers last year, I mean, he hit 250, which is going to be an upgrade from Joey Gallo's batting average, right, last year. He only hit 12 home runs. Now, I correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I maybe I just don't know his numbers. I felt like that might have been low for him. So that to me is a little concerning in the sense that, in Arizona, that stadium That's a home run hitter's ballpark, and you're going to come down to Dodger Stadium, and you're going to lose a couple of home runs to that famous Marine layer. So I don't know. Obviously, it's going to be a platoon, right? I mean, do you guys expect that guy to be an everyday left fielder for the Dodgers?
I mean, I think he's going to probably get a majority of that time probably out there, with, Taylor going out there as well. If Outman's on the team, probably as well. But now, you got guys like Outman and Thompson. Outman might be the odd man out too, right? So you don't know how it's all going to play out. But yeah, I mean, I don't think they necessarily, got him for, okay, this guy's going to hit us, 30 home runs. I don't think. I mean, as you look at the team, it doesn't look like a team that's going to hit, a lot of home runs. I mean, there's a few guys in that lineup, probably, Muncy, if he gets back to normal, Muncy, Mookie had a high in home runs last year. Will he continue that this year? So, but besides that, there's not that many guys right there are going to go, hit, 30 plus home runs. So I think they know that, and I think they just, they were looking for the defensive presence, the veteran presence in Peralta, and I think that's what they got.
Cody, do you think it's a platoon, or do you think he's going to get the majority of the time out there?
I think he's going to get a majority of the time out there, barring any injuries that could potentially happen. I think he's more of a left fielder. I think he'll stay out there. I don't think they're going to try to put him in center. I think Betts obviously has every right in right field. I think the reason why the Dodgers kind of really signed him too is it gives them more flexibility on their bench as well. Just because now Chris Taylor doesn't need a set position where they can kind of rotate him around like they did in years past. I think the biggest thing that went wrong with the Dodgers in the years past, like 21 and 22, was that their bench wasn't really deep. You got to a couple guys which were like automatic outs. I'm not even going to try to remember the 2021 postseason with Souza Jr. on there and stuff like that.
I knew you. How did I know you were going to mention that guy? How did I know?
It's something that has been in my mind because after 2020, I mean that bench, a lot of those guys, they're starters for other teams now, and I think the Dodgers kind of wanted to get back to that. Like Roger said, it's not a team that's going to blow you away with 40 home runs. Like, they want stability, and I think that's something that they've wanted for the past couple of years.
Real quick one. So yeah. Peralta's his high in home runs was 30 back in 2018. Okay. So after that, he's been averaging about 17, 12. Those are kind of his other highs. So he might get you 12 home runs this year.
So that 30 was an outlier for him. That season was an outlier for him. Well, then I want to segue, now that we're on the subject of outfielders, I want to segue into Jason Hayward, because it came out that Freddie Freeman was really advocating for the Dodgers to bring in Hayward. And Hayward was brought in on a minor league contract. So it's not like the situation with David Peralta, right? So with Peralta, we're all under the assumption, the understanding that guy's making the team. Hayward is not a given. Now, I know people lost their mind because he hit a home run off of Tony Gonsolin in a practice game, and people are talking about the adjustments that he made to his batting stance. Look, I'm rooting for the guy because if that guy can return to half of the form that he had, that's a good thing for the Dodgers, and it'll be a steal for Friedman. If it doesn't work out, it's a minor league contract. It doesn't do anything. What do you guys think on the prospects of Hayward actually making this team and being productive? Because I've seen all this stuff before with people tweaking the batting stance. It didn't help Cody Bellinger. We still got the same results. Cody, what do you think? What are Hayward's chances of making this team?
I think Hayward, even though it was a minor league deal, I think it goes to the veteran presence, and I don't know if the Dodgers feel a certain way about Outman, where they don't think he's a major league ready player or that he'll be on the roster long term. But I think he's kind of on that trajectory where if he even puts enough in during spring training and shows that there's been some type of improvement that I think he'll make the roster. We seen the video of him hitting the home run off of Gonsolin. There's a lot of visual tweaks in his swing. He's been working out at Dodger Stadium pretty much since day one, since he signed that deal. So obviously he's been working with somebody in the team. And I trust the Dodgers coaching staff to pretty much have another project on their hands. They've done it with a lot of players in the past. And like you mentioned, if he can even be half of what he was in between when he was on the Braves, the Cardinals, or the Cubs, they would be getting a win, because realistically, the Dodgers in center field, as good as Bellinger was in years past, the past 3 years, it was pretty much you were asking for anything to help the team. So if Hayward could even put up a little bit more than half those numbers, I would say it's still a win for Friedman, just because of what they've dealt with Bellinger in the past. So I do like the signing. I think he will make the team, and we'll see what happens.
Babyface, have you drank the Kool-Aid on Hayward?
I mean, friend of the carne asada, Juan Toribio, said he's making the team. So it's pretty much a given that he's going to make that opening day roster for him. I mean, he's got Freeman backing him up, so and even Dave Roberts said he already has a leg up on making that roster spot. So I think he is gonna take that roster spot. And like we're mentioning with Peralta, like it kind of does that. That. So who are your outfielders now? You have Chris Taylor, Hayward, Peralta, Thompson,
Mookie,
and Mookie, right? So is Outman out? Right? Is Outman going to be the odd man guy? Right? He looks like it, right?
Well, I mean, but so here's the big, and this is why I wanted to start with Peralta and Hayward. The minute I saw them sign Peralta, I said, I feel like they're not giving Outman a chance. I really don't. Like, this poor kid, and look, it's up to Outman for him to perform. He needs to make the decision hard for the Dodgers. But everything that, like, even, what Toribio said, the minute they signed Peralta, I just felt like they're not going to give Outman a chance. And let me tell you, if Outman has a huge spring, they're going to hear it. They're going to hear it if he doesn't make the roster. Now, they may not because it's not like Friedman has a track record that's 100%, right? You can insert, the guy in Houston, for a miss there. But you're going to start seeing people start scratching their heads and being like, well, what are these kids have to do? Could it be that maybe the Dodgers are a little nervous about going to a complete youth movement? I mean, we can talk about it if you guys want, but Miguel Vargas is slotted to play second base, and Miguel Vargas has never played second base before. Now, I know Dino Ebel has said that he's impressed with his leg work and his footwork, and he feels like Miguel Vargas could play second base, but maybe the Dodgers, that's why they wanted that veteran presence, like Cody said. Maybe they are a little nervous about depending on all these youngsters, but I don't know. I'm hoping that Outman has a good spring and makes it tough, because like Cody said, I do still think there's a lot of question marks in that outfield. Yeah, they got a whole lot of bodies, but I don't know, other than probably Mookie and Chris Taylor, if you feel really do you feel confident in anybody else other than those two, Cody?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the only ones. And even Taylor's a big question mark just because of the season he had last year. He did have a couple injuries that sidelined him, that he even talked about a lot during the offseason, and how that was kind of mentally draining for him. But Hayward, that's a big if. Peralta is on the downside of 30. He's getting older. And Outman, I do agree. I don't think the Dodgers, they never specifically said youth movement. It was only Stan Kanston that said it. And it was a while ago when he said it, but he's the only one that's mentioned those words. But it's not good roster construction when you're having that many rookies on the lineup and on the roster. That's just how it is. And I think that's the reason why Outman will be the odd man out. And it sucks because if you look at his minor league statistics from last year, they were pretty impressive. And he had a lot of good games. He hit a cycle twice in a week. And I think could be a lost player this season. But we never know what will happen.
Babyface, is Outman maybe possibly a trade chip? Is that what's happening here?
I mean, I think probably what's going to happen with Outman is, even if he plays, has a awesome spring, hits 400, whatever, he's going to end up probably getting sent down, right? Because they're going to say they want him to play consistently, right?
Yeah.
They want him to be in the lineup every day. So what they're hoping is, he'll go back down to OKC and he'll continue to tear it up. So, he'll be there for a couple weeks, a month, and then they're going to, okay, we got to call this guy up. And by that time, things usually happen, right? Guys get hurt or something happens, and they might have a spot for him. So I think that's kind of what they're hoping is going to play out with Outman. That he just continues to hit and he goes down to OKC and he's playing every day and he's continuing to tear it up, and then they'll have a spot for him come in late April, May.
So then that's, I guess, Cody's point, right? Cody, you had mentioned the depth was an issue. Maybe, I guess it's a good problem to have that they have all these bodies here and that they have those guys down in the minor leagues that they can bring up because they didn't have it before.
Yeah, I definitely think it's not a bad problem to have because injuries are going to happen. Hayward's had his deal of injuries when he was on the Cubs. Peralta, like I mentioned, he's getting older. He could have an injury. Taylor had injuries. Mookie Betts has struggled with a lot of injuries for freak things the past 2 years. So I don't think he'll be traded unless maybe it's for something at the deadline. But I can see him realistically getting a call up if, say, Hayward does make the roster but doesn't perform. But I hope Outman gets a shot. So
I mean, same thing goes for Thompson, right? Thompson came back to the Darts, and he was hitting really well, right? He did really good in his time with the Dodgers. They kind of towards the end, it looked like he got exposed a bit, but we don't know what Thompson's going to look like, start of this season, right? A month into it, we don't know what Trace is going to. He's been with other teams and he's struggled, right? When he's come to the Dodgers, it seems like he's done a lot better. So what Trace Thompson are we going to get, a month into the season?
That's what I'm really interested. That's the outfielder I'm really interested in seeing is how he does, because I know Roberts and the Dodgers are going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's been a major leaguer, right? But this is what I'm saying in the sense that I don't know how realistic of a chance they're giving Outman, because you guys are all telling me that what I was afraid is going to be true. They have already made up their mind. He's going to start in the minor leagues. They're going to go with these guys and try to give these guys at least a month to show that they still deserve to be on this team. But Thompson, is, for the exact same reasons that you just said, Babyface, he's the one I'm very interested in seeing to see if they did figure him out. I mean, because he's only had success with the Dodgers, but it's always been in short periods of time. It's not been over an entire season. Like the last time, the first run that he had with the Dodgers, when he was about to break out, he then got hurt. And then when he went to other teams, he never produced the way he produced with the Dodgers. Same thing here. At the end of the season, he gave them that extra ball. But in the playoffs, yeah, you're facing better pitching. So clearly everyone is going to get exposed at that point. But I'm curious to see if he can carry it over to the next season. Cody, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I honestly, just by looking at the competitions that are going to take place in spring training, I think it really should be down to Thompson versus Outman. Just because even Trace Thompson, he got off to a hot start when he got traded here and replacing Betts when he was on the injured list. But I believe he had reverse splits last season. So I don't think that's what the Dodgers necessarily wanted. They really wanted him to hit left-handed pitching, and that never really translated. But he hit well enough against right-handed pitching that he ended up being a stay keep in the rotation or in the lineup. So, between Outman and Trace, I feel like that should be the main competition. So
Okay, we talked about there's the questions in the outfield. Are there questions in the rotation? I think maybe there's questions in terms of where these guys are going to get slotted, but in terms of the rotation, I think it's clear that it's going to be Urias, it's going to be Kershaw, it's going to be Syndergaard, it's going to be Gonsolin, and it's going to be Dustin May. I think those are going to be the five guys to start the season. I think as the season progresses and the eventual injury that's going to come to anyone in those top five, I think you're going to see then Pepio. And look, Roberts told us at FanFest that we're going to see Gavin Stone and we're going to see Bobby Miller at some point in this season. But Michael Grove always seems to be a guy that they call up to do spot starts. In terms of the rotation, I've seen ridiculous things on the internet saying that this is a top five rotation. I just don't agree with that. That statement. Cody, what do you think about this rotation? And first of all, do you think those are the five that we're going to see?
I think opening day roster wise, that's the five we're going to see. By September, October, I believe it should be a little bit different. I'm on the fence of saying they are a top five, just because there's a lot of question marks there. Dustin May coming back from Tommy John surgery, a full year. We know he's going to be probably on an innings limit. Gonsolin had his career high in innings last year, and it kept getting higher and higher with each start, and he ended up getting injured in the latter half of the season in August. Kershaw, I mean, he'll get his one random injury in probably the middle of the season that'll help him get ready for the playoffs. And Syndergaard, there's a lot of upside. I believe this rotation is, if they all work out, it could be a top five. Just because what these guys have shown in the past has been elite level stuff. I think the only anchor of the rotation is Julio. And Kershaw's a good number two, but it is Julio's staff right now. So they got to rely on him. We're obviously going to see other guys come up throughout the season, but this is the starting five, at least for right now.
Babyface, do you differ in this opinion?
No, I mean, unless, like you said, something happened to one of those guys before the opening day comes around, then yeah, that's who I see starting the season. And then we'll get Pepio up. We'll get I think Micro Grove will get some spot starts. Andre Jackson, when they need to fill in some guys, and then we'll get Bobby Miller and we'll get Gavin Stone. I think towards the end. I think Gavin Stone will be towards the end. Miller might come in, towards the middle. A couple months in, we might see him. But yeah, those are the guys. I mean, they're going to rely on. They're hoping that Syndergaard, a year removed from Tommy John, comes back and he's throwing heat. He thinks he could get back into the hundreds. I mean, does he need to throw that hard? I mean, I don't know. If he has his command and he's on, I mean, does he got to be that throwing that much heat? I mean, we'll see. Also, Walker Buehler, right? I mean, I've heard him. He continually says like he thinks he might be able to do something at the end of the year. I'm not in that camp either. I mean, like, why are you going to try and come back at the end of this season from a second Tommy John? We saw what happened with Dustin May last year, right? Now this is two Tommy Johns. Like, what does he want to do? Does he want to do something where he hurts himself again? And what are you going to do, a third Tommy John? I mean, Walker Buehler's in a tough spot right now. It's like you can't get hurt again. So I think he's just got to play it safe and just sit out this year and wait till next year.
So is there a world here where Kershaw is your number three? I know you had mentioned two. So are we looking at a rotation of Urias, Kershaw, Gonsolin, Syndergaard, May? Or do you guys have those guys in a different order?
I have it pretty much the way you said it. I believe Julio should start. He's obviously the best pitcher on the team. It could go to Kershaw just for sentimental reasons, but that should be the 1-2 punch. I think Gonsolin, I think just because of the year he had last year, deserves to be the 3. And then you kind of go off of how he bounces back from that. And then Syndergaard, good 4. And then Dustin May, when he even made the rotation in 21, he got the 5th spot. And I think that because he's on an innings limit and they want to take their time with him, I believe that's a pretty much perfect spot for him. But it could change at the like it always does in October, where if Dustin May has a really good year, he could be the number 2. I think stuff-wise, Dustin May probably has the best stuff on the team. It just, can he get to that level again? So, but yeah.
Yeah, I think Dustin May is going to take a while. I think Dustin May's season, hopefully, if it's good for the Dodgers, is going to go the way his season when he got hurt. He started off slow, and right when he was figuring things out is when he got hurt. So I expect him to really start hitting his stride towards the end of May and early June if all things go right for them. So I like your rationale there, Cody, in the sense of let's give him the 5th spot, give him time to do whatever he has to do to hopefully regain that form. But I think Gonsolin still has question marks because last year was the most innings he's ever pitched, and look what happened at the end of the season. So that depth of youngsters that we have in the minor leagues, I think there is no doubt they're going to see time because we just got a lot of guys in this starting rotation that I don't think anyone expects them to survive a whole season. I mean, when we saw Syndergaard at FanFest, babyface, that dude is huge. He is huge. I get it why they call him Thor, and it's not just because of the hair. I mean, this guy's body is ridiculous, right? But he might be too big to be a pitcher, and maybe that's why he ends up getting hurt. But like you said, Cody, I mean, if these guys can all find a way to stay healthy, maybe they do end up being a top 5 pitching staff in Major League Baseball. But right now, there's just what they say, the greatest predictor of injuries is your history and your past. And we have guys here in this starting rotation that all have history and injury history. I mean, surprisingly, after Julio's injury, he has stayed durable, knock on wood, but he's your most durable guy. So after Julio, I think there's a lot more question marks. What do you think, babyface? Is that the order you have them in?
I think so. I mean, unless they want to break up the 2 lefties to start off the season and put like Gonsolin in there in the number 2 spot, they might do that. But other than that, that's probably like the logical, the way you'd probably run it out there. But like I said, unless they just want to break up the lefties in that first series or whatever, right?
Well, it'll be interesting because another question mark in regards to pitching is they don't have a closer. And I don't think, will they eventually get a closer? Who knows? I mean, maybe someone will come out, but I really do think at least the first month of the season, it's going to be closer by committee. They're going to be pitching. They're going to be using people in different situations. You may see Evan Phillips come in and pitch in the 7th inning or pitch in the 8th inning to face the heart of the lineup. So it might be all matchup based. Do they need a closer? If your bullpen, if you're winning games playing this matchup game, can you go a whole season just playing matchups, Cody, or do you eventually need to name a closer?
It's something I have a kind of a love-hate relationship with when watching the team since Kenley Jansen left. Because I do believe during the regular season, for whatever reason it is, that they can play matchups. They can make it work. They did it all last year. They did it most of last year. After Craig Kimbrell wasn't working out in the first couple weeks, you saw him moving away from that role, and they kind of just put the best man out there. Whatever the spreadsheets were saying was the best man in that situation. Can they do that again? Yeah, and they probably are going to do that for probably the entire season. But I do think, in terms of thinking as a manager, it's a lot easier in October when you know you have that man in the 9th inning. And I think that's the reason why the Padres bullpen was pretty much almost elite in the entire in October. And the only time they messed up was when they put in Suarez against Harper. You could have argued that they should have put in Hader, but it's just one of those things where I do think you need an actual closer, someone that's going to take that ninth inning every game. I just don't know if they're going to trade for one, because I know Andrew Freeman has stated that he doesn't like trading for relievers. And the two times that notable ones that he's traded for relievers, he's given up really good players that ended up in Alvarez and Cruz. So I don't think he wants to trade for another reliever.
Babyface, do you think eventually a closer will be named?
Yeah, I think eventually they're going to have a closer, right? I mean, they picked up Alex Reyes, right? I mean, injured, but he was a closer for the Cardinals, right? And nobody seems to mention that he was the closer that CT3 hit the home run off the walk-off in the playoffs, right? A couple years ago, right?
Well, I don't think they mention it because it's like, okay, so we're going to bring in a guy who gave up a huge home run and we're going to put him in our bullpen. I think that's why people don't mention it.
Yeah, but that's the guy we got, right? He's been hurt. He's been hurt a lot. To see how he does. But I've been hearing some chatter of Daniel Hudson, right? Daniel Hudson was having a very good season for the Dodgers before he got hurt. He's closed out with Washington before. I mean, the bullpen is going to kind of remind me a little bit how Washington closed out their World Series, right? When they won it all, right? They kind of were mixing and matching and ended up going with Hudson as their closer. So we might see Daniel Hudson in, a month or two get that closer role, so we'll see. I mean, I think that's an interesting guy to keep an eye on.
I mean, it's a good problem to have. They have a lot of arms. I know, again, they have projects in there, but if those projects hit, I mean, it's great. If they don't, I mean, I don't know what to expect from Shelby Miller. The guy's only pitched 20 innings in the last year or so. And Reyes is coming back from an injury. So, look, we've seen this work out in the past. Brandon Morrow, I think, is a perfect example of that. So it can work. I mean, will it? That's a different story. That it's a lot of question marks on this team that they have to figure out. And because there's so many questions, that's why I don't think you can say that this team is the favorite to win the division. But that being said, I think there's other teams in this division that also have a lot of questions too. So I think this division is a toss-up for maybe the first time in a long time. That there isn't a clear, definitive front runner. Obviously, the show pods are on paper, but the show pods, I think, are going to have to. They got a lot to prove. I think now they are the hunted. They are no longer the hunter. So I'm curious about that. I want to segue. We've been talking a lot about Kershaw, and Cody had mentioned it. It's inevitable. Kershaw is going to end up getting some sort of injury. I mean, Kershaw is going to be 35 this season, or if he's already 35. So this is the part where we bring up in the year that this might be the last time we see Kershaw. He may retire. This is he's got 1 year left on his deal. So after this, he's a free agent. So we're going to go through the same song and dance that we went through before. Is he going to retire, or is he going to go to the Rangers? Right? But Kershaw had committed to play for Team USA in the World Baseball Classic. And for you loyal listeners, you guys know we love the World Baseball Classic, and we were excited that Kershaw was going to play for Team USA. And then it came out that Kershaw could not get insured, and he's not going to be playing. First of all, Cody, do you have a problem? Does it bother you that Kershaw's not going to be playing for Team USA?
In a way, yeah. I was very excited when Betts said he was going to play, and then I was even more excited when Kershaw said he was. A lot of these players even said that it's kind of like a once-in-a-career opportunity. A lot of them are very passionate about playing for their country. And I think Kershaw, looking at the rotation for Team USA, he was probably the best pitcher on the team. So the only other one you could argue was probably Wainwright. But yeah, so it's disappointing that he couldn't get the insurance to play for Team USA. But it is a little bit of a silver lining just because now he can take his time in spring. He can get ready for the regular season, which at the end of the day, I would rather him focusing 100% on Dodger baseball than the World Baseball Classic. But it would have been nice to see him pitch, just because there's so many good players playing this year in this tournament, especially on Team USA. So, but you'll have to move on, unfortunately.
So let's get your thoughts on this, Cody. Are you into the World Baseball Classic, or is it just like a novelty to you?
I mean, it was pretty big in 2017, the last time that they had it. Before that, I couldn't really, even hardcore baseball fans, they knew about it, but they didn't really pay attention to it. I believe it may have been played 2 or 3 times before that. But I think when more star players start to announce that they're playing, I think when Trout said he was going to play, I think that's when a lot of people got really interested in it. But at the end of the day, it's just I'm more of a Dodgers fan than I really want to see the USA win the entire thing. So if the players can stay healthy and focus on the Dodgers, I'm not going to be mad about that either. So
I still think there's a lot of people that look at it the way you look at it. Babyface, are you upset that Kershaw's not going to be playing for Team USA?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to see him play, right, and I was looking forward to seeing him play, right, with the team that the USA has announced, right. Having Kershaw on there makes them, a legitimate, they had a legitimate chance to win this thing, right, and they still do, right. But I do see a lot of people are saying, like, oh, well, that's good, so he's not going to go get hurt or whatever. But my response to that is like, what are they going to be doing in spring training? Right, yeah. they're still practicing, they're still playing games, right? So they could get hurt. So if he's gonna get hurt, it's gonna happen. Doesn't matter if he's playing in the WBC, right? I mean, I don't know, because they think it's more intense or whatever. I mean, Kershaw's a competitor. I mean, he's out in spring training, and he's competing. So I don't think it's much different in how the person that he is, right? So, I mean, that sucks that he's not gonna play, but it kind of irked me, I guess, a little bit when I heard it. The Dodgers didn't want to give him the insurance.
Yeah.
So that obviously, when a guy's in his last year, a guy Kershaw, right, forever Dodger, right, and then the Dodgers don't want to let him do that. That kind of that's a burn now, because now you don't know how that affects the relationship going forward. You know, he even said this is probably his only chance to do it. Right, he's not probably do it in 4 years or whatever, right? So if he really wanted to do it and they didn't let him do it, like that, next year free agent time, hey, you know what, Dodgers, cool, but you kind of did me dirty on that one. I think it's time to move on. So I don't know.
I mean, you bring up a very good point, and for those of you who don't understand what Babyface is referring to, Jorge Castillo, friend of the Carne Asada, wrote a great article about this in the LA Times. So go check it out, because he explains it very, very clearly. Miguel Cabrera of the Tigers and Kershaw kind of had the same situation, in the sense that they both were couldn't get insured to participate in the WBC, and it's because of their injury history, right? So both of them were labeled as having chronic conditions. With Kershaw, it's his back, and he had the elbow in 2021. So that was the reason why he was deemed as uninsurable. The Tigers, the same thing happened with Cabrera. He got deemed uninsurable. However, a couple of days later, he did get insured. And the reason why he got insured was because the Tigers waived those requirements. So what this comes down to is a money issue. And I know nobody wants to hear this with the Dodgers, because they think they basically are Scrooge McDuck and they just swim in piles of money. But obviously, money is an issue for the Dodgers here, because what this insurance does is, if Kershaw does get hurt in the WBC, the insurance is going to pay for his salary, and the Dodgers don't have to worry it. So in a sense, the Dodgers are going to get reimbursed by this insurance policy. So they're not spending their own money to pay for Kershaw to just sit on the bench because he got hurt in a tournament that people feel like it's not necessary. So to Babyface's point, I have to admit that is disappointing, and I wonder if Kershaw is going to carry that grudge, saying, this was my one opportunity to play in this. I finally wanted to play in it, and you guys won't do it. Like, there were reports that Kershaw was looking into buying his own insurance policy, but it's just ridiculously expensive. So if it was ridiculously expensive for Kershaw, then I'm assuming the Dodgers, in their minds, are justified in not wanting to spend that money on the insurance, because it's a lot of money. So I think you bring up a very interesting point, Babyface. At the end of the season, if it resorts in, let's say the Dodgers don't win the World Series and Kershaw still wants to play, how much of that is going to factor in? And if the Rangers have a very good season, if they make the playoffs and get eliminated or make a run and maybe they're a couple pitching moves away, maybe Kershaw does go back to Texas. I'd hate for it to be like this is what caused Kershaw to leave the Dodgers. That would absolutely suck. But we've already seen this happen before. Justin Turner wanted to re-sign with the Dodgers. It was the Dodgers that turned him away. So it's a business in the end there. So
I mean, and just real quick, I mean, I know it's completely different, but when things like that happen and you'd say, oh, that's fine, whatever. But I don't know if you saw the Corbin Burns when he was talked by reporters where they were asking about the arbitration. And he said it, you know what? This has put a little wedge there in the relationship. They were just talking, they were talking about arbitration stuff. So little things like that, when a player wants something or wants to do something and the employer, I mean, same with us, right? Like you're at your job and you want to do something, your employer tells you, no, you can't do that. Yeah. You're gonna feel like, oh, that kind of sucks, right? So
yeah, the Corbin Burns, I saw all the Twitter GMs already going, oh, Dodgers are going to trade for Corbin Burns. Right, because the Brewers aren't going to ask for a lot for Corbin Burns. Yeah. So it's interesting. I want to, we're running out of time, so I want to segue into a couple of things. I found it very interesting, the number of Dodger players that said they were sent to Driveline. It's not that they voluntarily went to Driveline. They were told by the organization to go to Driveline. Mookie was one of the ones that I found really interesting because Mookie, he gained some weight coming into camp because he was specifically told you need to get stronger. I feel a lot of the reasons why they told these guys to go was to improve their bat speed. Do you think sending these guys to Driveline is all a reaction to them losing to the Show Pods in that playoff series, Cody?
I think from watching the past 2 seasons, I think one of the biggest issues that the Dodgers hitters have had, and it's kind of frustrating just because of them being major league hitters, is they were swinging through so many fastballs straight down the middle, and it's all of them. Betts was doing it. Turner was doing it. Bellinger was doing it with a lot of other pitches too, but he was doing it. But it seems like an issue with bat speed, like you mentioned, because they specifically told Betts to go and a couple other players, and he even put on weight to gain more muscle, where 2020 is a small sample size, and I believe he finished runner-up to Freeman in the MVP race that year. It was either second or third. But he's hit a lot of home runs, but his average just really hasn't been there from when he was on the Red Sox, where he was hitting well above 300. And he's even stated himself that, and a lot of people that are around his camp, especially on the Dodgers and the Red Sox that know him well, they said he's really looking forward to this year and taking a really big step forward. And I think that's just the mental state that they wanted to all be in. And that's just an issue that I've noticed that they've struggled with for a while.
Babyface, do you, I mean, you and I, we talked about this last year. We were surprised at Mookie's batting average. It was, in the high 260s. And like Cody had mentioned, I mean, I remember, Mookie hitting 300 with the Boston. Why can't we see Mookie hitting 300 with the Dodgers? Yeah, the home runs are great, but I prefer to see someone hit for average. What do you think about this whole Driveline saga?
Yeah, and I think it was kind of interesting too when they asked Mookie, like, oh, so you went to Driveline? He thought, yeah. Why'd you go to the Driveline? He thought, my employer told me to. So, so I mean, he had to do what he had to do, right? When the Dodgers told him, hey, you got to go do this. And I mean, interesting that he picked up a little bit more weight, and we'll see. I mean, to me, yeah, seeing him hit like 260, that's low, I think, for Mookie Betts, right? I mean, I'd expect him to be, high 280s, 290 into the 300s, right? That's kind of what you want to see Mookie in, 290 or above. So hopefully that helps, and he gets back on par with that. I mean, I don't expect Mookie to hit 30 bombs like he did last year, from the leadoff spot, but if he does, cool, right? But I mean, I want to see him get on base and get that average, above 300.
I think, Cody, you bring up an excellent point with the fastball situation of them swinging through them, because I thought with Mookie it was concerning the number of fastballs that he was swinging through. So I hope this Driveline thing does help them with their bat speed, especially with the changes. We haven't even gone into the rule changes with the shift being gone. I think we're going to see a more traditional game of baseball where average getting on base is going to be more important and manufacturing runs. So I hope this Driveline thing works. I want to segue real quickly before we end the show to something that I think Cody's interested in, and I think it's mainly because he just wants to see Babyface's reaction. So I've been seeing on social media that the Dodgers no longer will be having the LA patch on the side of their jerseys. Cody, I'm going to let you take it from here. Can you fill us in? What's going on here?
Yeah, so I noticed on the Dodgers social media when they did photo day the past 2 days that the LA patch on their sleeve is gone. And obviously we all know a lot of teams are doing the sponsors this year. The Padres have them, the Red Sox have it. And I didn't know if the Dodgers were going to do that because they didn't formally announce anything, but it looks like that's on the way. So I'm not too sure how I feel about it right now. So
what you're saying, Cody, is the in and out patch, that's where it's going to go? It's going to go right where the LA used to be?
I hope it's something that isn't very in left field. I hope it's something that it makes sense with the city or the team, like a current sponsorship. Mm-hmm. And that's not something that's too out there where it's going to bug me. But hopefully they're smart. They definitely know that the Dodgers jersey, just like the Yankees jersey, is just one of the most well-known things, and any little change to it is going to piss off a lot of people. So
by a lot of people, you mean Babyface. Go ahead, Babyface. Go on your rant. How dare they take the LA off of the patch?
Well, I mean, they don't need those patches, right? Like I've been saying that. I mean, why? This is MLB baseball. You don't need money from a sponsor to just because you want to get more money, right? It's $1 billion industry, right? And the thing too with these patches too, it's been whoever it is, Motorola, whoever, right? It's and I saw compared with the NBA patches. The NBA patches that they have on are they're sewn in there, and they still use the colors of the NBA teams, right? So it kind of blends in seamlessly. But these other patches are just whatever those colors are for those teams. That's what's going on the sleeve. So if the Dodgers go with T-Mobile, they're gonna have a big old pink T-Mobile patch on their sleeve. So I don't know how that's gonna look to you guys, but that's gonna look pretty nasty to me, right? To see something like that on a patch that they don't need. I mean, how soon are we gonna get to? We've talked. This was soccer, right?
Yeah.
When you look at they have a big old sponsor name, like LAFC has Flex, right? I'm like, is this Team Flex? Like, you don't even see the team name on their jerseys. Like, is that what we're going to get to eventually with MLB?
I look, we've had this argument before, and I wish Alonso was here. I have never equated LAFC with Team Flex. And that's because I watch football, and I know that that's what the sport is. So let me ask you this. Remember before Dodger Stadium, it was just a blue wall out there. Now remember when they put the signage on the actual walls? And I think it's still there, actually. Does that bother you? Because they're getting money from putting the signage up on the wall.
I mean, I wouldn't put it there. I mean, my favorite wall was kind of when they had the players. They had those images of the players and all that stuff. I thought that kind of looked nice, right? But I get it. I get. To me, that kind of reminds me of a minor league ballpark. When you walk into a minor league ballpark, you see that signage all over, and the minor league ballpark because they need it. Again, MLB doesn't need it, right? It's $1 billion industry. They don't need those extra little things, but I get it, right? They want to continue to make money any way they can. And we're seeing it more and more, right? You have that. You're starting to see sponsorship names on the side of the field, right? Like by the base coaches, right? There's names there. They're putting stuff on the mound. So I hate to say it, but eventually it's going to be all over those uniforms, right? We're going to start seeing, like some Mexico jerseys, right? They have names like completely on their shirt, on their jerseys, and
it's going to be NASCAR. It'll be NASCAR.
I think that's where it's eventually going to be headed to.
I look. It doesn't faze me if they're going to take that revenue and it's going to help them to re-sign Julio Urias. By all means, do it. Because your favorite owner out, in Flushing, he's got deep pockets. So you're not going to be able to outspend him. So if it's going to make it a little easier to have some extra income here to sign Julio Urias, I don't have a problem with it. To me, yeah, I get it. It'll probably be distracting because we're just so used to seeing a clean white jersey. But nowadays in sports, teams have like 3 or 4 jerseys now. I mean, the Diamondbacks look like they're wearing softball uniforms every time they come. They got like 3 different uniforms for a 3-game series. In the end, it's about the product on the field, right? It's about whether they win or not. Yeah, I guess it's a traditionalism, being a traditionalist, I mean. But it's not going to be to the point where it enrages me that I'm going to be, hate watching baseball. It's just not me, but I am very curious to see who that sponsor is because will it be somebody that already has an existing sponsor? Or, wouldn't it be great if it was a mom and pop? Would you be okay if it was a mom and pop?
Well, a mom and pop's not going to be able to afford that, first of all, but... Right. I mean, if it said Bleedlos on there, there you
go. I think if they were wearing Bleedlos, you'd be okay with it.
I think we could figure something out, right?
There we go. So that being said, a perfect segue as we end the show. We are looking for ambassadors of the carne asada. And I'm going to let Babyface explain what that means by if you become an ambassador of the carne asada.
So if like I said, if you've followed this show, you've seen our show, we've had some cool guests, right, that have come on, and we'll give them some Blelo stuff, Joe Kelly, Joe Bimo, right, and we've seen these guys. We go out and then we see these guys wearing our stuff. Not us saying, hey, we'd like you to wear this stuff out in public or whatever. They've done it because they've wanted to, right? They had a good time on the show or whatever. They enjoyed it. And they're out promoting us, right? And so that's our ambassadors, right? So that's what we want with some of our fans. If you've listened to the show, you like what we do, we want some ambassadors, our fans. Hey, help us promote this thing, help us grow this thing, help us, because we think there's a lot of Dodger fans that don't know about this show and they should know about this show, and we want to reach those people. So we want, some of you guys help us promote this, become ambassadors. You'll get some stuff. We're trying to do some just different ideas what we could do. Maybe we could do some meet and greets, with a couple of these guys, like Bimo or whoever, right? And they're in town, like, hey, let's go meet up and have some tacos or whatever, right? Or go to a game and hang out with Juan or us or all of us, whatever, right? Something. We'll figure stuff out. They'll make it cool for you guys that are helping us out, helping us promote this thing, and help us grow it.
And so if you are interested in becoming an ambassador of the Bleed Lows podcast, DM the Dodger Beats account on the social medias or the Bleed Lows podcast accounts on the social medias via Twitter or Instagram. Is there any other way you want them to reach out to you, Babyface?
If they go to the any of the Dodgersbeat or Bleedlos podcast.com, go to the contact section. You can shoot out an email or whatever. Let us know,
And that would be fabulous. So while you guys are at it, if you've stumbled across us for the first time, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Not only to the podcast, but subscribe to the YouTube channel. We have YouTube content that's specifically only to the channel. We just recently dropped an episode on player philanthropy. Check out that, and you can check out all these other episodes. So I want to thank Cody Snavely. So Cody, you... this was your first time on the show. How was it? Was it painful? Is it never going to happen again? Are you over us?
No, I hope we can continue doing something like this. Like we mentioned earlier, I'm always writing stuff on Dodgersbeat, especially with the season coming out now. We're gonna get a lot more ideas going through. But yeah, it was really good talking to you guys. I love talking Dodgers baseball. A lot of stuff that we could talk about over the next couple of weeks over the course of spring training. So I'm really excited.
So there you go. Check out Cody's stuff on Dodgersbeat. Yo ha sido su servidor. De parte de mi colega, Babyface, this episode of the Bleed Lows podcast has been brought to you by betonline.ag. Nos vemos para la próxima.